Now, many of us have the good fortune of being close to an archery club or an archery range where we have access to coaching, or if not that, then at least like-minded people who can help us on our archery journey. Now, not everyone has this access. Some people just live too far away from a club or a range, or the timing's inconvenient. Although some people just don't like being told what to do by somebody else, and they'd rather figure it out on their own. So they go online, unironically, to ask for advice from other people on how to learn. So I'm not here to question how you learn archery. We're here today to evaluate whether the advice you are getting from online sources is trustworthy. Now, I'm going to make a very big distinction between online coaching and online advice. So online coaching to me covers professional coaches who are offering a service, paid or otherwise, on an online platform. This may include websites or personal coaching or remote coaching, or it might be a YouTube channel, for example. So in this case, the quality of the course depends on the quality of the material and the person providing it. That's something you can evaluate individually and judge for yourselves. When I'm talking about learning about archery online and online advice, I'm talking about public forums. So we're covering things like Reddit being one of the big ones, Facebook, and Quora or Google if you're going that far, and actual specific forums like ArcheryTalk. So if you're going online or you're searching for things or you're joining communities, how much can you trust communities to give you the right kind of advice? Now, as a benchmark, I'm comparing this to real life coaching, like in person. Nothing really measures up to live coaching in person because you get to build a relationship with your coach. The coach can learn about you, understand how you learn, what you are doing right now and why, and how to fix things. We have a way to teach a curriculum or adapt our teaching to you specifically. So I, as a coach, and I'm a high school teacher as well, for those who don't know, it's easier for me to teach someone, show someone, than to ask someone to look it up on Wikipedia or Google and figure it out. The main crux of this is the feedback loop. You show me something, I'll observe it, I'll evaluate, I'll show you how to improve. That cycle is what coaching is all about. Now in other sports, this is more ingrained because they teach you the basics from a coach or instructor, whether it's swimming or tennis or running. These are quite high intensity, high demand, high performance sports where if you want to do well, you need a coach because you can't just automatically run really fast or swim really fast. You have to learn technique to do so. Archery can be quite rewarding from a low level, so people think they can just figure it out and shoot longer distances and hopefully be okay. But the reality is, if you're doing archery as a sport and you're competing, you need some kind of guidance. Coaching in person is the most effective way. Now, you might not have the most effective coach sometimes, but the fact that you have in-person interaction will get you much further, much faster. I can teach someone in person in, let's say, 15 minutes, but I might take an hour to explain to someone online or making videos to show something. It's just not as effective. They're very broad, but it isn't the same as receiving one-to-one coaching. With that said, if you have no choice but to go online, there are some general guidelines to follow. Number one is the more specific and I guess closed or insular a community is, the more reliable the people in it are. So for example, look at some Facebook groups. If you have, say, a very specific and specialized group like ATAN, the Asiatic Traditional Archery Research Network, that's pretty much the central community for Asiatic archery. Most of the researchers, bow makers, writers, they're the ones who are in that community. They probably know more about the particular forms and styles they practice, and there's a lot more collective knowledge. You have things like Chinese archery, if you're doing traditional Chinese archery. Those are, again, very specialized groups which can help people out and get you in the right direction. But then you have the broader communities, like the more general archery Facebook groups or whatever general group you have. These tend to be a lot more for the mainstream, so people who casually like archery or do archery once or twice. You rarely find specialized experts in the field posting there. These are more casual enthusiasts or hobbyists or people who just do it for fun, that's literally what it means. Who are just sharing photos or memes or that sort of thing. And that's where you see a lot of the misconceptions being reinforced. Even on my Facebook page, I'll just post a photo of me shooting, one of my bows, and people will unironically say you're doing it wrong because they just don't know. And they're not in the right kind of space to be informed that they are wrong. They just think they're right. There's no penalty for being wrong, and they just shout facts out, even though it's not relevant to any particular scenario. So that's the big risk. More specific tend to be better, whereas broader tend to be less reliable. Now, I'm going to make two broad comparisons here. One is going to be ArcheryTalk as a forum versus everything else. It might be Reddit, Quora, Facebook, just generally everything. I'll say Reddit is the main thing because that's the largest community. That's not specifically archery. I'm talking about the archery subreddit actually. So there are many subreddits. The archery subreddit is a fairly large community, one of the larger ones online, and we have ArcheryTalk as the number two. So let's first talk about ArcheryTalk. So ArcheryTalk is specifically a forum made by archers for archers. I know many of us here now don't join a lot of forums. We'd rather be using social media apps like Reddit or Facebook or Instagram to get most of our online material digest. So sometimes we don't want to join and make accounts anymore. It's kind of a thing from the 1990s and 2000s, 2010s, showing our age here, right? But people today often don't want to join these communities. As a result, forums like ArcheryTalk tend to be quite insular. So you have fewer people, and the people that have been there for a long time. There's not much fresh blood or fresh content being in and out, so it's less adaptive, but a lot more concentrated. Now, the big benefit of ArcheryTalk is the sheer volume of people who are experts. If you make a thread on ArcheryTalk, on a good day, you get replies from a couple of archery coaches who are quite high level or national level. You'll get replies from store owners. You might have people with links to the industry. You might get a national champion or two, and you'll get the Viper. So it's a great place to have with people who are going to be good at their field, whether it's Olympic recurve or trad. They generally do know what they're talking about. The flip side is, unfortunately, it can come off as a little elitist to someone who is completely new to the sport. I'm not saying that everyone is elitist. The sport in general does struggle from an elitist attitude in online communities and sometimes in real life as well. So this isn't unique to ArcheryTalk, but it can be very dense. There's a lot of personality on the forum because everyone is so more of an expert or experienced in their field. You get a lot of the I'm right and you're probably doing it wrong vibe sometimes. So if you're not used to navigating the intricacies and the vagaries of online interaction, it can be a little abrasive if you're not used to talk to people who actually do know a lot more than you. So it can sometimes feel a little unwelcoming, but the quality of advice in ArcheryTalk generally is much better than elsewhere. And on the other side, we have Reddit. And I'm not going to count like Quora or other things. It goes downhill from there, but Reddit being the other main community. Now, I'm on Reddit a lot. Those who follow me or look for advice will often see me on Reddit. And it's a bit of a love-hate thing because, one, it is a very accessible community. It's very entry-level. You can ask a lot of things there. People will answer right away. So it is one of the probably the larger archery community, being the archery subreddit specifically, and you find a lot of people on Reddit who will just help you out, and generally that's a good thing. However, the concentration of expertise is very, very diluted. Here's one big difference. On ArcheryTalk, you'll find names which you'll recognize in the field. If you're a coach or a competitor in archery, you know these people on ArcheryTalk. They're the same people. Whereas if you look at Reddit, it's all anonymous random users. You won't find a high-level coach or a high-level competitor posting on Reddit for archery specifically. You don't have that kind of expertise or credentials. Yeah, you'll find people who are high-level coaching, like level 3, level 4 coaching in the US. Or you might find, I guess, me there sometimes. But you're not going to have the same concentration because Reddit is a fairly casual, open browsing experience. Most people there are basically anonymous random people. The advice you get if you post on a thread on Reddit is not going to be qualified, but in a requirement to prove or show something. So while on ArcheryTalk, there are people who will disagree with you and will say so. On Reddit, there's a lot of dogpiling. So a lot of newbies, beginners, casuals will observe things they know are to be true or wrong or in their opinion wrong, but not be corrected unless someone with actual experience comes in, which may not come in anytime soon, depending on when I'm awake or when someone else is awake. We don't always post everything. And obviously, by the time a thread reaches like 20 replies, no one's going to read it. So it's often the first person in will get the main attention and the dogpiling begins. And that's really my biggest fault with Reddit as a community, not with individuals in the community. I think the subreddit is fine, but it is very beginner focused. Most threads are for beginners, by beginners, and responded to by beginners as well. You don't often find established people with good names in the community actually providing reliable advice. The advice you get usually isn't wrong, by the way. It's usually good advice, but it is presented in a way which makes sense to someone who is learning. It's often knowledge we've learned or acquired, but not really kind of pieced together cohesively. And this is why I keep measuring against real life coaching. I'm going to say, should I get a coach? The answer is yes. If someone asks for a form check, I always say, work with your coach first. Because what people will say is very nitpicky. An example of this would be, look, you post a form check and you'll always see the same kind of comments. If it's a good form check, no one answers because they can't provide any intermediate or advanced advice. And for that, you really need personal coaching. But for a beginner who shoots badly, it's going to be a dogpile session. You'll see the same kind of comments. Number 1, elbows too high. Number 2, back tension. Number 3, use a finger sling. All these things are perhaps true in some way, but probably not the most important thing right now for that learner. Now, as a coach, I might read in a bit more into what they're thinking and how they're doing things. I might ask more questions, but I don't like to prescribe what to do without knowing them very well. But most people don't have that understanding of coaching. They'll just say, you're doing it wrong. These are the things you're doing wrong. And of course, once someone says that, everyone else will say, oh, well, yeah, I see it too. Yeah, I knew that. Yep, your back tension is really bad and you're obviously sky drawing and you need a finger sling. Oh, by the way, you should buy a quiver, you should stand properly and get a finger sling. That sort of thing. A lot of repetition. The more popular form checks, obviously the algorithm will promote more interaction. So once enough people start dogpiling, it becomes top of the archery subreddit. It becomes visible on /all. So all these things become more of a dogpiling thing where fewer and fewer people with actual knowledge or expertise in coaching will give advice. Doesn't mean everything is wrong. Again, once you've been there enough, you know who the experts are, people who are reliable and provide good advice. But that's really the problem with Reddit. They provide good advice in good quantity, but it needs to be filtered. And the people who are asking for advice don't have that filter. They don't know what is good. So you're getting a splattering of poorly cohesive advice, and it can make things a lot worse. In comparison, a more specific community like ArcheryTalk doesn't need such a huge filter because the quality of the participants is usually much higher. So that comes down to the question, can you trust online advice? Firstly, it depends on where. And secondly, it really depends on who is giving you that advice. Not every person on the internet is an expert. You know this, it's the internet. You wouldn't be asking me if you knew everything already, right? So you have to qualify the advice. If a forum doesn't allow like any qualifications or credentials, or it doesn't require any, then it does reduce the reliability. If it does allow and people openly show it, then that's something you might consider seriously. For example, might be tags on ArcheryTalk, might be flares on the Archery subreddit, although they're not required and there's no rules around that, so people can claim what they want. But it's something which I would say for any sort of advice online and in general, be critical over what you're being told and who is telling you that information. They're not necessarily wrong, but it may not be applicable right now. It may not be the best way to learn things right now. So I will always say, if you have access to someone who can teach you or show you in person, work with that person. If you can't do that, you can of course learn online. I of course run an archery channel. There are plenty of good archery channels and archery communities. It's a very good place to learn. Now especially, there are more resources which more people are filtering better. So they're putting together, lists or collections, or people recommend the same videos over and over again because they're reliable videos that explain things well. So definitely worth investigating if you have no other choice. If you want to enhance your education, it's worth studying about other things online as well. Learn what people do, learn how people interact. Just be careful of unqualified and especially unsolicited advice. The internet is a very open place where people can post whatever they want anonymously with no repercussions. So that can actually harm your archery journey if you're not filtering what you are reading. Anyway, I hope that helps. I don't want to diss any communities. I think every community has a unique appeal. I, of course, don't have much time to hang around in all communities. I just stick to one. And for that reason, I might be a little biased for and against Reddit in particular ways. I think my funnest collection would be on Reddit, people fanboy when I post. They're like, oh my God, to do something, I watch your videos, oh my God, it's you, I didn't know this year, oh my God, I love you, upvote. It's great, they get tons of upvotes. I read them, I don't reply because it's an ego thing. I don't want to kind of stroke my ego, but I find it really funny when people really freak out when they see me. I'm actually there. It's like, yeah, I'm there. I'm a person. I hang out on forums too. But on ArcheryTalk, it's like, oh yeah, he's okay, but he shoots like shit. So then I get that too. It makes sense. That's fair. But that's kind of the different quality, right? I would compare myself to the experts on ArcheryTalk. They're far more experienced and far more qualified than I am. I'm just some regular high school teacher, just post archery videos and I hang out on Reddit. So that's a quality you get sometimes. There are, of course, people like me in a different capacity on Reddit and other forums. But really learn to know who to trust. And you'll start getting a better sense of what you can learn from other people online. I hope this helps. Thank you all for watching, and hopefully if you are learning and interacting online, you're having positive experiences, and more importantly, be the person that you wish you had. That was my mantra as a teacher, my mantra as a coach. If you want to make the internet a better place, as naive as it sounds, or make your community a better place, don't be that toxic person who tells people they're wrong and dismisses advice. Be the person who's going to give encouragement, who will give pathways, who will ask questions rather than give answers. And that last bit of advice probably hit a lot harder than I expected to. I do hope it helps, and I do hope you have a very good archery journey. See you next time.